Hi, welcome back to Burning River Bushcraft. Today we're going to be waxing a leather knife sheath. So a few weeks ago I was paddling with my nephew and he brought a knife along. So this is a knife he normally carries fishing with him, and it's got quite a long blade to it and it's got a curve. But first thing I noticed was this sheath that he had. He made a simple plywood sheath and it worked real well for him, but he was just setting it down on the ground whenever we stopped, so I thought I could do something better for him. So I did make a leather sheath. I had never made a knife sheath for a knife this long, let alone with this kind of a recurve before. But I got it done, wet molded the sheath. I've made knife sheaths on video before, so I didn't film the process, but it's got a nice solid retention to it. So what we're going to be doing today is putting a wax coating on the sheath. So I've waxed canvas before on video. This is the famed Skookum knife sheath. This entire knife sheath is dipped in wax and it's real hard and rigid. This is like the high water mark of waxed sheaths. Just for comparison here, this is one I made, and you see it's scarred up and the weather kind of gets to the leather and it changes color on it. You know, it's still got good retention to it, but definitely the wax is going to protect the leather and make it last longer. Now, being how my nephew is a nautical guy, he's always around the lake or rivers, fishing, boating, doing anything like that, I wanted to give him as a protective sheath or protective coating on his sheath as possible, so that's why we're going to wax it. So I've got my wax heating up in a crock pot. It's the same crock pot that I use when I make any medicinal creams or salves. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and heat this leather up so it's a little more absorbent and it'll soak in the wax a lot. So I've already had this sheath up by the fireplace, so it's already warm for the most part. And this is wet form to the sheath already, so I don't want to get it too crazy soft. I want it to feel warm to the touch but not really hot. And I'm going to do both sides. So heating up the wax is the slowest thing of the whole process. So if you don't have a crock pot dedicated to this like I have, you have to use a double boiler or something. But get your wax liquid before you even bother to start with this. So right now the sheath is warm. I'm going to go ahead and brush this on. I've got full liquid with my wax in the crock pot, and I've got a foam disposable brush. I would prefer to have a cheap thick bristle brush, but this is what I've got, so this is what I'm going to have to use. Alright, so I think I've got the leather nice and absorbent, and I'm just going to give myself a nice thick coat of wax. So this is definitely going to darken the sheath. I've already dyed the sheath, but the ends are unfinished, so the ends are definitely going to soak in the wax a little more and give it that protective seal like I'm after. So the sheath is cooling down. You can see how quickly the wax turns white when it hits it. I'm going to go ahead and give this a good coating, and then I'm going to put the heat gun on it. So you can see it's really not absorbed into the leather yet. So I'm going to go back to the heat. And now you can see it really soaking in. So I'm going to focus just on the front of it right now. I'm going to get this whole thing heated up again and just brush it in. Alright, so the sheath already has, it already had been dyed, it already had been burnished on the ends and finished. Yeah, it's a little bit darker now. It's still a little tacky and it's still a little warm. So anytime you heat up a wet molded sheath like this, you can see it's still pretty thick. It's still pretty rigid. This is 8-ounce leather. But anytime you apply heat to this, you can lose your wet mold. So since it's still wet here, I'm going to put the knife back in. You know, we still have our retention. It's got a nice pop right here. Okay, looks nice. So there's just a few areas, I don't know if you'll be able to see it there, just a few areas where the wax hasn't quite soaked in all the way. But the bulk of the sheath is in pretty good shape right now. I'm going to go ahead and finish off some of these nooks and crannies where the wax is kind of collected. I'm going to go ahead and give it a light second coat, and then we're going to let it completely dry. Two coats of wax. It's still slightly warm, but it's not bad at all. Looks nice. It definitely darkened up the finish. The edges didn't do a whole lot for the edges, actually. Not what I was hoping for. But weather and age will, you know, make this look a little bit nicer. But the body of the sheath itself is well protected. The color took and got a little darker. Looks a little more used, I guess, but it's a nice rugged sheath. This finish will last for quite a while in weather. I know all the waxed sheaths I have, they're holding up great. It's a good natural finish. It's easy to reapply if this thing ever was to lose its retention or get too old. It's a simple matter of heating it up again, adding more wax. But for right now, yeah, this thing is good to go. So here's the dried sheath, completely finished. Still got excellent retention to it, but it comes right out, no issues. This is set up for a high carry because this is such a long knife. I didn't want it hanging too far down. So, you know, his sheath was completely functional and safe to use. This maybe is a little more functional. I'm not much of a woodworker, but I'm not much of a leather worker either. But either way, the sheath is completed, the wax coating is done, and hopefully he's a happy guy. Till next time, this has been Jamie Boggs with Burning River Bushcraft. See you soon.